Shalom, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Assembly of Yahuah Men's Study, Wednesday study. And we're going through the final book of First Corinthians chapter 16, final chapter, sorry. And let's get right to it. So it's 18 verses, so we're gonna see if we can break it down in groups of, we're gonna read the first 10 and then finish it off with the last 8. So does anybody want to read the first 10 verses of First Corinthians chapter 16?
I would, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. Go ahead, brother.
Okay, verses 1 through 10. And concerning the collections for the set apart ones, you are to do as I gave orders to the assemblies of Galatia. Every day one of the week, let each one of you set aside, storing up whatever he has prospered, so that there are no collections when I come. And when I come, whomever you approve by your letters, I shall send to bear your gift to Jerusalem. And if it is fitting for me to go, they shall go with me. And I shall come to you when I pass through Macedonia, for I am passing through Macedonia. And possibly I shall stay with you, or even spend the winter, so that you send me forward wherever I go. For I do not wish to see you now on the way, but I expect to stay a while with you, if the Master permits. And I shall remain in Ephesus until the festival of Shavuot. For a great and effective door has opened to me, and many are opposing. And if Timotheus comes, see that he is with you without fear, for he does the work of the Master, even as I.
Oh, praise Yah, brother. You want to point out any interesting facts about the first 10 verses of First Corinthians 16?
I'm not sure if I'm accurate on this, but when I was first coming into Torah, studying the meanings of words, and like as in Shavuot, the counting festival of weeks, if you will, 7 sevens. And so what I was learning was that when you're saying like counting, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then Shabbat, Sabbath, 1, and there's 7 of those that would have led you to the morrow after that counting of those 7 sevens, which is 49 days. Therefore, the Greek Pentecost, 50 being the morrow after that. Now, when I'm seeing this thing referring to Shabbat, it's just reminding me that I was doing some study about this when Paul was traveling at another time in Acts chapter 20, I believe, when he was trying to arrive, which some translations, and might have been Strong's or might have been something else, kind of gets mistranslated. It makes it sound like the first day of the week, when in essence he was getting ready to get there before the counting of the first Shabbat of those 7 sevens. So I don't know if at this point what this particular one might be referring to, but that was something that just kind of stood out to me, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I remember JP and I and a couple of other brethren went through that idea. Does anybody remember where that other account of mentioning Pentecost was? I believe it's in the book of Acts.
I think it was 20, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong.
Acts 2:38, wasn't it?
What I have here is Acts 27. I was referring to where it says, and on day 1 of the week. And so that's what I was referring to, that some studies are teaching that there was a Greek Sabbath, and then someone else are saying it's the first day of the week. And it's interesting that the word day, even in Strong's Concordance, is italicized. And so it's an additive. It means one, primary, first. And so in the Shavuot, you count 7 sevens. 7 times 7 is 49. And so when you look at it from a Greek standpoint, just counting, you kind of miss that. But that's the festival of the weeks. And Yah never named any other days but the 7th day. So you counting 7 sevens. And that was what the study that I was doing at the time led to that conclusion. So I just, whether that's applicable here or not, I just wanted to bring that up. I don't, anyway, thank you.
I think somebody mentioned it. Acts 20 was where that idea was focused on. So there's only two times when it's mentioned. I believe there was 3 times: Acts chapter 2, and then Acts chapter 20, and then 1 Corinthians. So I think we discussed it, and we went through a timeline. I do believe we came to, this is Acts chapter 20, verse 7 to 16. I think we went through a timeline that didn't really make sense as far as looking at it in that sense. Well, we could look at it briefly. Acts chapter 20, verse 7 to 16. So the idea is that the mention of the first of the week and then a mention of Pentecost was not referencing the first day of the week, but mentioning the first Shabbat count of the 7 Shabbats before Pentecost. So looking at that, verse 7 of Acts chapter 20, it says, "And upon the first of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, and continued his speech until midnight. And there were many lights in the upper chamber where they were gathered together. There sat in the window a certain young man named Eutychus, being fallen into a deep sleep. And as Paul was long preaching, he sunk down with sleep and fell down from the third loft and was taken up dead. Paul went down and fell on him, and embracing him said, Trouble not yourselves, for his life is in him. When he therefore have come up again and broke bread and eaten and talked a long while, even till the break of day, so he departed. They brought the young man alive and were not a little comforted. And we went before to ship and sailed to Assos, there intended to take in Paul, for so he had appointed, minding himself to go afoot. When he met with us at Assos, he took him in and came to Mytilene, and he sailed thence and came the next day against Chios, and the next day we arrived at Samos and tarried at Trogyllium, and the next day we came to Miletus, for Paul had determined to sail by Ephesus, because he would not spend the time in Asia, for he hasted, if it were possible for him to be at Jerusalem for Shavuot, for Pentecost. I'm not sure what that would do for that idea. I mean, him trying to make it for Shavuot proves he was keeping the feast. I'm not sure if the first Shabbat is something significant about counting the first Shabbat, that it mentioned it multiple times, specifically referring to the first Shabbat. But I don't know. Do you have any reason why that would be significant to make that the first week of?
No, it's just the only reason I was just bringing it up is just when we're reading English week, it doesn't really mean week. It's actually Shabbat. So the one of the Shabbats, one of the Sabbaths. So there's 7 Sabbaths. That's all. That was the only thing. These translations add the word day. And so what they do is they take the word one, which is a primary meaning, one in the next one coming, this one coming, one of the Sabbaths, and they translate it as first day, which is really an error, because even Strong's bears that out. It was an additive. It was italicized. So that's all. But I didn't, my question was, like, in this context tonight, whether that be true or not.
Mm-hmm.
And my question was it was really kind of a question. I was just curious the reading of that, because it's mentioning Shabbat again, and then it's using this word every day one of the week. And in essence, we're back at it again, because week, it shouldn't be week. It should be Shabbat. It should be Sabbath.
Right. No, Shabbat also means week. Shavuot is actually pronounced Shabuot,
Right.
which is the plural of Shabbat, Feast of Shabbats, which is Feast of Weeks.
Right.
The word Shabbat is the seventh day as rest, as well as the completion of a 7-day week. So the word Shabbat also means week as well, just like the Greek word, which is mentioned, I believe is Shabbaton. Shabbaton, is it?
Yeah, it's Shabbaton.
Shabbaton also means, yeah, Shabbaton is the Greek equivalent to the Hebrew Shabbat. So Shabbaton also means week as well, which we, yeah. So that we have to consider that as well. That's why it's Feast of Weeks is Shabuot, which is, I think everybody knows that the Hebrew plural of a feminine is ot or oti, I think. Akot. Akot means sisters, right?
Right.
Akot. Yeah, so Akot means sisters. So Shabuot means weeks, pluralizing Shabbat, referring to weeks, Feast of Weeks.
Right.
So not necessarily Feast of Shabbats or Feast of Sabbaths, or Feast of Rest is more Feast of Weeks, because you're counting 7 weeks.
And the only thing I'll pause here. I was just looking just out of the Strong's Concordance, the reference in chapter 16, verse 2. The way it reads from the Strong's, it says, according to one of the Sabbaths, each of you by yourself put in, treasuring up whatever way he should be prospered in, that not whenever I come, that the collection should take place. So I was just looking for clarification, that's all, because I know a lot of times I get, we learn a lot of times from Greco-Roman or English or whatever. And so I was just curious, because this is a direct reference to the Strong's on this, according to one of the Sabbaths is how it reads, as opposed to my one translation here saying every day one. I think other ones say first day of the week, which really changes everything, really. As far as the day.
So,
yeah. Just curious.
Yeah.
I was just curious. It wasn't like to, take away from the study or anything. It's just I was looking at a couple of translations here, and I was just curious.
No, this is what we're doing. We're dissecting it. This is like the ending of a letter. So we're trying to see if we could pull out as much as we can. But yeah, no, thank you. I mean, it's good to always be aware of the details. That's very important. And yeah, so I think the reference of first of the week and the context probably would help us to maintain clarity. Sometimes even in Hebrew, certain references, when only looking at the Hebrew word itself rather than the way the sentence how it was used, and the context, sometimes the context is also showing that the word is not even used the way Strong is defining it.
Right.
So that's another thing also with Strong, is to test him with the context of the chapter as well, to make sure he's lining up.
Thank you. That's all I had. And I apologize. I'm going to have to go away for about a half an hour, but I'll be back. And I appreciate letting me share and read. Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to point out anything in the first 10 verses of 1 Corinthians 10? And we have him obviously keeping the feasts with the Ephesians, wanting to tarry at Ephesus until Shavuot in verse 8. So this is just another indication of him in a Gentile city, keeping the feast with Gentiles, or people of other nations that is now following Yah and his son. So a lot of times we get that disconnect with the nations and Israel. When there's no disconnect, it's like what goes for one goes for all, and this has been taught in the law. Specifically, let me look at this one verse in Exodus chapter 12. When he was giving them the feast of Passover, they made mention that if a person wants to come to Yah, that they would be able to come to Yah from another nation. Where does it say? It says here in verse 48. So it talks about circumcision and joining themselves with Yah. And I want to just emphasize on the Yah part. It's not that they want to join themselves with Israel, is that they want to join themselves with Yah. And when they join themselves with Yah, they become a part of Israel. So in Exodus 12, 48 and 49, it says, when the stranger or the foreigner shall sojourn with you or dwell with you, and will keep the Passover to Yah, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat of it. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourns among you. So the one law, will pertain to both the homeborn and the foreigner that desires to join himself with Yahuwah. Very important phrasing, join themselves with Yahuwah. Sometimes we get caught up in thinking that they're joining themselves to Israel by recognizing the people of Israel, but in actuality, they're recognizing Yahuwah, and this is what allows them to be a part of Israel. Matter of fact, this is what allows bloodline relatives of Israel to be in Israel. Because judging by as many as died in the wilderness because of their disobedience, those who were blood related that disobeyed Yah were destroyed. So again, it's always bringing us back, including the feast, bringing us back to the faith in lining ourselves up with Yah and recognizing him and being a part of what he is putting together. Does anybody want to read? Let's look at this. The last 8 verses of 1 Corinthians 16.
I'll do it.
Oh, sorry. No, not the last 8 verses. What is it? 8? Can somebody? Yeah. Just read the rest because we already read the first 10 verses. So 11 to 24.
Okay. It says, let no man therefore despise him, but conduct him forth in peace, that he may come unto me, for I look for him with the brethren. As touching our brother Apollos, I greatly desired him to come unto you with the brethren, but his will was not at all to come at this time. But he will come when he shall have convenient time. Watch ye, stand fast in the faith. Act you like men. Be strong. Let all your things be done with love. I beseech you, brethren, ye know the house of Stephanus, that it is the first fruits of Achaia, and that they have addicted themselves to the ministry of the Kodeshim. That ye submit yourselves unto such, and to every one that helps with us and labors. Am I reading the right book? Said the last 8 verses, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, not the last 8. I was just saying all the way down.
Okay.
From 11 to 20. Yeah.
Okay, I got you. All right. I am glad of the coming of Stephanus and Fortunatus and Achaicus, for that which was lacking on your part they have supplied, for they have refreshed my ruach and yours. Therefore acknowledge ye them that are such. The called out assemblies of Asia salute you. Aquila and Priscilla salute you much in Yahuwah, with the called out assembly that is in their house. All the brethren greet you. Greet ye one another with a holy kiss. The salutation of me, Paul, with my own hand. If any man love not Adonai Yahusha HaMashiach, let him be anathema, manrathata. The grace of our Adonai Yahusha HaMashiach be with you. My love be with you all in Mashiach Yahusha. Amen.
All right, brother. That sounds good. Do you want to point out anything that stands out to you?
Um, when it says, "Watch ye, stand fast in the faith, act you like men, be strong," I think that right there, it says, "Let all your things be done with love." When it says, "Be strong," I think that brings us back to being of good cheer and good courage. To basically to not let fear rule in us, not rule in our hearts, because when we start to fear, we start to doubt. Just like when he was, who was it, Peter called out of the boat in the midst of the storm, he saw the Yahusha walking on the water. Then he says, "Bid me to come unto you." And he says, "Come." And as he steps on the water, he was able to walk, and he kept on walking towards him. But as he was walking towards him, it says the winds got very boisterous, and then he began to sink. Then Yahusha reached in and grabbed him, and he asked, "When did you doubt?" And then it struck me that the moment that he doubted is when he took his eyes off the truth, which was Yahusha. And when he took his eyes off the truth and looked upon the world in fear, then doubt entered his heart and he began to sink. So therefore, we have to be strong during those boisterous times when the wind blows up against us. We have to be like the mountain, be strong to basically not fear, be of good cheer. And whatever comes our way, it will be protected because he's there with us. And to do all things in love, not anger, not hatred, because life and death is in the tongue. So we do all things in love. That means we act, speak, and think in love. And if we stray away from that, fear will begin to grip us, and then doubt will begin to anchor us, and then we begin to drown.
No, absolutely, absolutely. There's a certain phrase in scripture when it's referring to faith and the faith. The
Mhm.
faith is usually referring to the foundational understanding of Yahuwah sending his son Yahushua to,
Good news.
the good news
Basora.
basically is the foundational
Basora.
principle, right? So it says, "Watch ye therefore, stand fast in the faith, and be strong." So I agree with what you're saying. Like the time, things were not, things were definitely not peaceful amongst other people. The Roman Empire and things like that. So people were being persecuted and affected greatly. So he was encouraging them to remember the promises, remember the beliefs that you that changed you. And I think a lot of times, the more that we entertain the world, the more that we allow these doubtful ideas to come into our mind, is the more that we forget what allowed
Mhm.
us to believe in the first place, what allowed us to
That
stand
fear.
firm in the beginning of our walk. Right, right. That fear that takes away these things, and Yah wants us to constantly remember His promises. He has been constantly approaching Israel, trying to remind them, I'm the one that brought you out of Egypt. I'm the one that brought you out of Egypt. So they can remember that He's able to work miraculous things in our life or in our path as well. So the same promises goes to us today. Be strong, be of good courage is what He told to Joshua as well, when he was supposed to move forward, to go forward into the land. And likewise, he's telling us now, be strong, be steadfast in the faith, in the belief of what I've given to you, of what the prophets have been waiting for. So hallelujah, for that encouragement. We definitely need that encouragement today. um Brother JP, you got your hand up. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, shalom, shalom, brothers. Just looking at these last verses, well, 15 to 18, I guess. He says it's interesting. I don't know what the other versions may say, but in the King James it says, "I beseech you, brethren," this is verse 15. "I beseech you, brethren, the house of Stephanus, that it is the first fruits of Achaia, and that they have addicted themselves to the ministry of the saints." And it was interesting that they used the word addicted, because they're really showing, well, in the King James version at least, they're showing that, like, when you're addicted to something, of course we always have a bad interpretation of addicted, because we use it in the English, but in this type of manner, it's showing how much they were, involved with the ministry. They were like, that's all they did all day, all night. And then it says after that you submit yourselves unto such, and to everyone that helpeth with us and laboreth. So to submit those, submit yourself to that ministry or to those people. And so it really shows that body, like that one body, and you're submitting yourself to each other, and you're addicted to this, and it's like you're putting all into it. So I just thought in this context, the word they used really brought it out, especially knowing my, in a negative context we hear in the world. I can understand it in this context, that word addicted. So praise Yah. Shalom.
Shalom. Yeah, definitely. I like that too, because there's a lot of words that is used. That's a general word that if we were to use it pertaining to spiritual things, it would make so much more sense. To be, like another word that reminds me of addicted is obsession. Obsession is not a bad word; it's a neutral word, but you can use it. When you think about what obsession means, you'll see that Yah is obsessed with us, and he's telling us that we ought to be obsessed with him, or giving him all of our heart, mind, soul, strength. When we see someone applying that to the world, we would say that person is addicted to that, or that person is obsessed with that. But Yah is telling us to love him with all of our heart, mind, soul, strength. And then he's telling us that his thoughts towards us is like the sand of the sea. He's never ceasing to think about us or to plan ahead for us. So we need to kind of get out of these I would say earthly mentalities. I know many people want to Greekify stuff, but the earthly carnal mentality of what these things are, and apply it, redirect it to the right place. To addict is to assign oneself, right? And it says it means to ordain or to set for the purpose of, right? And this is kind of what addictions are. Like when alcohol addiction is the purpose, a person is have set themselves, their finances, their choices, for the purpose of performing this drinking or drugs or whatever it may be. We need to do that with Yah. We need to definitely do that with Yah. And I think a lot of times we allow the little things in life to kind of little by little break us away from that, I would say, perfect addiction, or that perfect obsession. It diverts our attention. Actually, it diverts our purpose, or it diverts our thoughts. So yeah, praise Yah. I like that. Praise Yah that you pointed that word out. Definitely, we need to look at it with a clear mind and apply all these attributes towards Yah, towards His word, towards His people, towards His work. Praise Yah for that. Okay, so this is basically a closing, him encouraging about the visitation of Apollos, and Apollos wasn't able to make it, and brother Timothy was being sent to him in verse 10. Aquila and Priscilla, which we know were the individuals that was instrumental in expounding on the good news to Apollo in the book of Acts. All of these people you'll remember from the book of Acts. Yeah. All right. So this is the end of 1 Corinthians chapter 16. Praise Yah.
Shalom, Akuti, and Brohim. Thank you so much for viewing this video. We hope it was helpful to your walk in the truth. Remember to always search the scriptures on your own, to study Abba's word and show yourself approved, according to 2 Timothy 2:15. We invite you to study with us. To To join us in a live study, just go to our website at assemblyofyahuah.com and click the Join Us tab. We have something available Wednesday through Saturday of every week. If you've been Baruch or blessed by this video today or any other study, we encourage you to go to the Giving tab on our website. Our elders all have their own ways of income, so none of the giving or proceeds go to them. Instead, it goes to biblical assembly needs. We also encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss any new videos. We sincerely pray that Abba continues to direct your path as you acknowledge Him in all your ways. Much avaha and again shalom.